Hello everybody, I'm Mrs Atkinson. I work at Shuttleworth College and I'm going to be reading you a story today. It's called Mr and Mrs Lovey-Dovey and the Sea of Tears, and it's written by David Walliams. I hope you enjoy it. So let's start. Mr and Mrs Lovey-Dovey and the Sea of Tears. Mr Lovey taught English at St Valentine's School for as long as anyone could remember. He dressed as if all his clothes had been knitted by his elderly mother, which they were. The man was never seen without his knitted tie, cardigan and tweed suit. One day, a new history teacher joined the school. Her name was Miss Dovey. She dressed as if she made her clothes out of old curtains, which she did. The lady favoured floral frocks that went all the way up to her neck and all the way down to her ankles. The pair were made for each other. On her very first day, Miss Dovey was put on break time duty. Mr Lovey was too. As all the boys and girls of St Valentine's School played it, these two lovebirds caught their first glimpse of each other. To begin, their shyness prevented them from doing any more than glancing at each other briefly, then looking away. However, soon the looks became longer and longer as they gazed into each other's eyes. Red and brown leaves fell from the trees around them, patter, and gusts of wind swirled their hair into the air. Swirl! The sound of a dozen violins soared from the music room. Da-dee-da-dum! The famous balcony scene from the most romantic play ever written, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, was being rehearsed in the concert hall. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east and Juliet is the sun. It's nearly as romantic as Bert and Sheila's love story in the classic novel Ratburger. In no time, their hearts were full to bursting. Neither could resist each other a moment longer. Mr Lovey and Miss Dovey opened their arms and began rushing towards each other. They scampered across the playground like gazelles, knocking small children out of their way. Woof! Ouch! Oof! Ah! Oof! No! Eventually, the pair embraced. Wallop! They held on to each other tightly. It was as if they had been searching the world for all eternity, and now they'd both finally found their soulmate. Such was their joy that they both burst into floods of tears. Yuck. Revolting, isn't it? What could be more vomit-inducing than a teacher in the throes of love? Puke. The answer is simple. Two teachers in the throes of love. Double puke. That first meeting was only the beginning. Soon, Mr Lovey was always loitering outside the history classroom to blow a kiss to Miss Dovey. Mwah! Hell. Meanwhile, Miss Dovey was always popping into the English classroom to drop off a cup of tea and a slice of her homemade cake. To Mr Lovey, clink, bah. One day he ended up eating 27 slices and had to be taken to the sick room. In no time, the pair of love-struck teachers were calling out messages of love to each other down the school corridors. "I miss you already, my beautiful rainbow," he would say, even though she'd only been gone for 5 seconds. Until break time, my handsome prince of love, she would call back, "Ugh, oh, Chuck." All the kids at St Valentine's found the pair pukey-tastic. Pukey-tastic is a word. Just look it up in the Walliams dictionary. You might be quietly sitting in the library when you'd be caught in the crossfire of one of Miss Dovey's slobbery air kisses aimed at Mr Lovey. Splat. Or you might be tucking into your lunch when you'd be met with the horrifying sight of Mr Lovey's face squashed up against the window of the dining hall, gazing lovingly at Miss Dovey. your lunch would end up being sprayed all over the window. Splatter. So far, so bad. However, things took a turn for the worse. Much worser. The teacher's romance blossomed and bloomed and even bloomosomed. And one day, in front of the entire school, Mr. Lovey got down on one knee. "Do you need a hand up?" asked Miss Dovey. "Not just yet," he replied. "Ever since I first set eyes on you in the playground, there was still a lot of chattering from the kids in the dining hall. Please, can I have quiet? I can still hear talking. Thank you." The school fell silent. "Ever since I did that bit, Miss Dovey. Whenever I see you, my heart explodes with joyousness. Please, could you make me the happiest, wappiest man in the world by becoming my wife? Miss Dovey, will you marry me?" From his pocket, he produced a ring that his mother had knitted and presented it to Miss Dovey. The history teacher burst into floods of tears. "Is that a yes?" inquired the English teacher. Miss Dovey couldn't speak, so she just nodded her head and whimpered. Then Mr. Lovey burst into tears as well. He was still down on one knee and beginning to look uncomfortable. "Ouch! Actually, please, could you help me up now? My knee has gone numb." And that's as far as I'm reading today. I'm going to pass you on to my colleague, Mrs. Gelder.